You're about to learn one deceptively simple skill that separates forgettable sales conversations from the ones that open doors, build trust, and turn strangers into long-term partners. Not tricks, not pressure. One core idea that shows up again and again in every great sales conversation you've ever been part of, whether you realized it or not. Most sales conversations don't fail because the product is bad. They fail because the opening collapses. The first 30 seconds quietly decide everything, and that's where we begin. As you're looking at the opening slide, notice the promise behind it. Hook your prospects instantly, not impress them, not overwhelm them. Hook them, because attention always comes before persuasion. Think about your own life for a second. When someone opens a conversation with something generic, your mind drifts. When they open with something relevant, curious, or unexpectedly sharp, you lean in. Sales is no different. It's human nature wearing a business suit. This entire video revolves around one core idea. Great sales conversations don't start with selling. They start with relevance. Keep that in mind as we move forward. Here's what we'll uncover now as the agenda comes into view. Every strategy you'll see, questions, personalization, social proof, curiosity, serves the same purpose. Not to push, but to earn the right to continue the conversation. Because the real win isn't closing in the first call. The real win is not being ignored. That brings us to why first impressions matter so much. Look at this slide and let it sink in. Prospects hear dozens of pitches every day. Most of them blur together. Same structure, same tone, same vague promises. The brain learns to tune them out automatically. Your opening line tells the prospect one of two things within seconds. This is about me, or this might actually be about you. And when the opening feels like it's about them, something shifts. Defenses lower. Curiosity replaces resistance. This is where the first real tool comes in. Building on that idea, let's explore the power of questions. Not random questions. Not scripted ones that feel like a checklist. Thought-provoking questions. When you ask a prospect a good question, you're doing something subtle but powerful. You're inviting them to think instead of react. You're moving them from, how do I get off this call, to, that's interesting. Look at the example on the slide. What challenges are you facing with specific issue? Simple, calm, non-threatening. But here's why it works. You're not assuming. You're not pitching. You're giving them space to talk about something that already exists in their world. And people are always more engaged when they're talking about their reality. Sales research consistently shows that conversations led by thoughtful questions last longer and go deeper. Not because the salesperson is clever, but because the prospect feels understood. Shifting focus, notice what happens next. Questions alone aren't enough. They need relevance. And that's where personalization enters the picture. On this slide, personalization isn't framed as a tactic. It's framed as respect. When you reference a prospect's role, recent growth, or industry shift, you're signaling effort. You're saying, I didn't just dial a number, I chose you. And that changes the emotional tone instantly. Imagine two openers. I'd love to tell you about our solution. Versus, I noticed your team recently expanded. How has that changed your priorities? One centers you, the other centers them. And here's the quiet truth. Relevance feels rare. That's why it works. This doesn't require deep research marathons. One meaningful detail is enough. One signal that says, I see you. Now, building on relevance, we arrive at credibility. This brings us to social proof. Early in a conversation, prospects are subconsciously asking one question. Why should I trust this person? You can't answer that with features, but you can answer it with familiarity. When you mention helping a company that looks like them, same industry, same size, same challenge, you reduce risk in their mind. You make the unknown feel safer. Notice the phrasing on the slide. We've helped similar company achieve result. Curious if that's relevant. That word curious matters. You're not claiming certainty. You're opening a door. Great social proof doesn't brag. It reassures. Now we move into one of the most overlooked openings in sales. Naming pain early. This is where many people hesitate. They worry about being negative. But here's the reality. Prospects are already thinking about their problems. You're not creating discomfort. You're acknowledging it. When you say, many in your field struggle with pain, you're telling them they're not alone. You're normalizing the challenge. And empathy builds trust faster than enthusiasm ever could. Look closely at this slide. The emphasis isn't on fixing the pain immediately, it's on recognizing it. That recognition alone often creates relief. From pain, we naturally transition into curiosity. Curiosity is what keeps a conversation alive. This brings us to teasers. Not hype, not mystery for mystery's sake, but carefully placed gaps in information. When you say, "Did you know fact could change area?" you're activating the brain's need to resolve uncertainty. Curiosity doesn't shout, it whispers, and when used well, it pulls prospects forward instead of pushing them back. Now layer all of this with energy. This slide on enthusiasm and confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being present. People mirror energy unconsciously. Calm confidence signals safety, genuine enthusiasm signals belief. If you don't sound interested, why should they be? Something as simple as smiling while speaking can change how your voice lands. Your tone carries more weight than your words ever will. This brings us to the synthesis point, the actionable takeaways. Look at these bullets not as a checklist, but as a rhythm. Question, personalize, reassure, empathize, tease, energize. Every strong opening follows this rhythm in some form. You don't need all of them every time, but you do need intention. And this is a good moment to pause briefly. If you're finding value here, this is where subscribing and downloading the PDF really helps. The guide in the description breaks these openers down into practical scripts and reflection prompts you can actually use today. Now, shifting inward, let's reflect. As the reflection slide appears, don't rush past it. Think about your last few conversations. Where did energy drop? Where did resistance show up? Where did you default to talking instead of listening? Growth in sales rarely comes from learning more. It comes from noticing patterns you've been repeating unconsciously. This brings us to a deeper reframe. Sales as service. When you stop seeing the opening as a performance and start seeing it as an invitation, pressure dissolves. You're no longer trying to win. You're trying to understand. That mindset alone changes how people respond to you. The quotes on the next slide reinforce this idea. Sales isn't about clever lines. It's about starting conversations that matter. And finally, we land here. Mastering your openers isn't about perfection. It's about presence, relevance, curiosity, open well, and everything else becomes easier. So here's your challenge. Before your next call, rewrite just the first 30 seconds. Make it about them. Make it specific. Make it human. Because when you hook attention with relevance, you don't chase prospects anymore. They lean in. If you want the full breakdown, examples, and exercises, download the PDF in the description. And if this helped shift how you think about sales conversations, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay with us. You don't need to sell harder. You need to open better. And you can start today.